2006, home teams get to bring visiting teams get to bring in their own footballs, and then 2007 happened, that record-breaking year with the Patriots, the 18-1 year. I don't know, but I've spent too much time on this already. Punishment. Troy Aikman thinks that the Patriots' punishment should be more than the Saints for Bountygate. I don't buy that, as every team does manipulate the footballs in some fashion. Like the Vikings and the Panthers earlier this year in that Cole game at the bank got in trouble with the league because both teams were keeping the balls around the heaters, and that's a no-no. So that is technically breaking the rules, except that didn't really get a lot of play because I feel like it's one of those accepted facts that everyone kind of does it, even though it is technically against the law. Like I equate it to driving 60 miles an hour into 55. Does everyone do it? Yes. Is it illegal? Yes. Should you be punished if you're caught? Yes. Is that big of a deal? No. It's just like jaywalking, where it's kind of a dumb law, but it is against the law if you get caught doing it, and you can get punished accordingly. Now, I don't think Bill Belichick deserves to be punished or suspended for a full year like Sean Payton on Bountygate, because even with Bountygate, a lot of teams were doing the whole pay for performance type of thing, but this is much less malicious than that. This is not actually systematically trying to go out and injure players, and that was more of a public image thing. And I think there will be a punishment for it. I believe the rules state that it's like a $25,000 fine, but that ain't going to happen, especially not for public opinion. I think the Patriots will get docked like a third-round draft pick, as fines mean nothing. Belichick got fined $500,000 for Spygate. Do you think he cared? Probably not. Suspension doesn't really make sense, but Colin Cowherd had an interesting take where a punishment for Belichick should be make him and the Patriots do Hard Knocks. That would be gorgeous. That would be beautiful. Even though Belichick did allow cameras in for that football life thing, when they followed him around for a full year, I think he would hate doing Hard Knocks, because that whole documentary aired a year afterwards, whereas Hard Knocks would air basically in real time. He wouldn't be down for that. But I don't know. It is just a shame that this is going to overshadow the entire Super Bowl coverage, as there's a lot of fun storylines, like the long snapper who came from an impoverished background to long snap in the Super Bowl. Those are the type of stories that you get during Super Bowl week, not this whole garbage. And unless the NFL concludes their investigation today, or if the Patriots throw some ball boy under the bus, it's going to carry over to next week, and that's just a real shame. Even though I don't mind seeing Mark Brunell cry a couple times. That was hilarious. But we're up against it. Our first break of the solo Claire-Vs-Carlson Show. We'll be right back for segment 2 with a little bit of Fran Tartenton, what the hell is going on, Marshawn Lynch grabbing himself, Seahawks, the other team in the Super Bowl. Oh yeah, there's still a game going on. NFL coaching moves, LOL Doug Marrone, and some other non-football junk as well in the hopper. BRB, Claire-Vs-Carlson Show.
Hello?
For daily conversations with the players, coaches, and contributors that make this game great.
Regulators, mount up! We're coming!
Football Convos. Visit footballconvos.com or visit us at iTunes.
And we're coming back for segment 2 of the solo Claire-Vs-Carlson Show. Actually, it's just versus Carlson today, I guess. As Claire, like we said, is out with the whole nose thing. Or, I didn't get the details quite right. It might have been an infected nose ring, because Claire, I don't know if it comes over on audio, has it's not really a nose ring. It's one of those things that the Bulls have. Like, she takes this whole Houston Texans fandom a little bit too far, where she actually gets the hoop. I know this doesn't come over well on audio, but, the hoop in the middle of the nose, that little middle part, it's not like a little cute stud ring that, some 15-year-old girl will get on her quinceanera. No, this is like an actual full-on bull hoop that Claire has, and apparently got infected. At least that's the story that I'm going to relay today. These are all probably lies, but I don't know. Getting back to some real stories, and the first segment was basically all Deflategate. And I apologize, because every single news outlet, every single radio show, every single podcast is doing stuff about that. Just had to get my 2 cents out there. I don't think it's a big deal. I think it is overblown or overinflated, as it were, by the media, since it is the Patriots, and all the traditional news outlets are getting their teeth into a story, usually a week before the Super Bowl. And I don't know. It's just a shame that it's going to cover up and maybe even taint a full week of Super Bowl coverage and the game itself. But I do think if the Patriots do get a chance to run out the score and possibly put a beat down on Seattle, which is entirely possible with Earl Thomas being banged up with that dislocated shoulder, Richard Sherman claiming he's okay after that elbow sprain, but we'll see. I think Belichick and Brady will be pissed off enough, and plus the Seahawks that can't help themselves. Jeremy Lane chirping that Gronk is not elite, he's just okay. I mean, why you got to poke the bear, Jeremy Lane? Who are you anyways? And Jeremy Lane, nickel or dime cornerback. Don't talk about Rob Gronkowski like that. You got to think that the Patriots will be absolutely burning and aching with a chip on their shoulder and just completely come out, try and whoop some ass. And if they have an opportunity to run up the score, they'll put 70 up, just so there's no doubt at all who the better team was. But we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, my grandpa's favorite player was Fran Tartenton. Third-round pick out of Georgia in 1961 for the expansion Minnesota Vikings. Fran, still regarded as probably the greatest quarterback in franchise history, and afterwards had some success in business and also does some speaking. Known to go on a rant or two sometimes, not afraid to speak his mind, and he definitely did that on CNN. They had him on to talk about the Patriots' Inflategate scandal, and he went a little bit off the beaten path, and here's what that sounded like.
Now, you want to hear a real story that everybody covers up for the last 20 years? Do you know what's epidemic? The team that their players take the most performance-enhancing drugs will win the game. These teams that are in the playoffs, and all the teams, they're taking performance-enhancing drugs, which makes their players, it's illegal, bigger, faster, stronger, and that's what wins football games. Deflating of football is nothing. But nobody wants to talk about the epidemic of performance-enhancing drugs throughout the National Football League that really changes the way the game is played.
Are you suggesting that the Patriots and perhaps other teams as well, if that's what you're suggesting,
every team
are winning, won the game, and much of it has to do with performance-enhancing drugs? Are you making that accusation on live television?
Yeah, no, I've been saying that for 5 years. Nobody wants to cover it. It's epidemic. If performance-enhancing drugs help Barry Bonds hit 70-plus home runs, McGuire 60s, and all the other stuff, and it's been epidemic in baseball and track and field. It's been epidemic in football.
And it kind of went on like that. Fran went a little bit off the rails, and eventually the CNN host, I didn't catch her name, eventually had to cut him off, as he was throwing around some pretty hefty accusations where he doesn't have any tangible proof in hand per se, but it is one of the worst-kept secrets that a lot of these NFL guys are jacked up on HGH, PEDs, and they are starting to get a little bit more serious on that, crack down on Adderall, crack down on diuretics, crack down on HGH, even though in exchange they're letting them smoke weed. But this is probably the true Inflategate. I mean, you're telling me that LaRon Landry, who was cracked earlier this year for PEDs, looks that normal through eating lots of spinach and doing push-ups? Probably not. And also you're explaining how these 350-pound defensive linemen can still run a 4.640. Okay. And I think he does have a point, but the thing is, when you're making an argument, it's all about the delivery. Like when Richard Sherman and Doug Baldwin did that stupid vaudeville routine earlier in the year, he had some great points about. In fact, I don't even remember what the points were, but because the only thing that people remember is how they presented it in such a hokey, kooky fashion. And it's the same thing with Fran in this spot. He does make a good point about how PEDs are rampant in the NFL and give teams an unfair advantage, even though it is one of those deals, kind of like the Tour de France where everyone does it. It still doesn't make it right. And he has a good point there, but the only thing that people are going to remember is him going on a tirade, on a rant, on national television, and the host having to cut him off because he was throwing out accusations out there without any proof. Now, if he brought it up on like a Larry King type show in a calm manner, calm, educated manner with lots of facts to back up his statements, then we'd be talking about his statements rather than how he was just yelling and screaming on CNN. And I don't know. Sorry, Fran. I got to call you on this one. Wasn't the time or place. It wasn't the best method of delivery as well. Speaking of not the time and place, Marshawn Lynch was fined $20,000 this week for grabbing his deflated balls, as it were. Damn it, there's another joke. Anyways, he's grabbing himself on his touchdown run in the NFC Championship game. Third time he's done that this year, and they finally popped him for the fine. And the whole thing is, why you got to keep doing this, man? You are 30 years old. I think he's 30. You are a grown-ass man. Why you got to just keep doing obscene gestures like this in public? Yeah, a large segment of the population probably thinks it's funny. Personally, I think it's funny as well. But you have wives, you have kids watching this game, and the kids are going to go out in the yard and emulate this, right? Pee-wee football, high school football. Every time they score a touchdown, they're going to jump backwards, top the opponent, and grab themselves as they land in the end zone, right? And that's not a good example. And you just got to grow up, man. You got to stop doing that. You don't have to go all Barry Sanders where you just hand the ball to the official, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to just grab your junk when you score. And, of course, $20,000 fine is nothing for Marshawn Lynch, as he was fined $100,000 for not speaking to the media throughout the year this season, and also most notably for not speaking at Super Bowl Media Week last year when the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl. So that will be a fun story coming up this year. And Marshawn Lynch this season has come up with various ways to deflect questions with the whole, yeah, thanks for asking. And he's an interesting person. You can tell that he's very intelligent, and you can tell that he doesn't like speaking to the media because of the way his words were twisted in the past, and college notably. I don't know, he's just an interesting cat, although that player should be forced to speak to the media, but if they do it, I know he has to do it, otherwise he gets fined. Just don't make a mockery out of it. Why are these media people wasting time on the offhand chance that he might say something interesting? No, this is the story now. And you got to move on to better stories. Like how the Seahawks are back in the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, there's another team in the Super Bowl. Who knew? After they won the NFC title game 28-22 in overtime, Russell Wilson with a 39-yard dagger to Jermaine Kearse to walk off the Seahawks into the Super Bowl. And this is especially a great game for me because, as many of you know, I am a dyed-in-the-wool Minnesota Vikings fan, and watching the Packers lose in this excruciating fashion was it was a top 5 Vikings moment for me, and the Vikings weren't even on the field. And it might speak to me as a person, but there are many Vikings fans that are in the same boat as myself, and sometimes there's